what's happening wherever you're joining us from. So, I just would want to encourage everybody, we don't have enough time to get everybody to talk, but I definitely want to ask you to please, type in your chats as you, especially at the beginning here. We'll be just kind of having some prompts of just things we're curious about, stuff we're seeing. But as I'll show you during this training, during this next hour, I just got a text from a site, a colleague I'm working with in Michigan, and they're doing some pretty interesting stuff there, adapting, accommodating, adjusting to what's happening. And so I'm learning a lot just by kind of being with them and sharing some ideas, and them sharing ideas back, and them just trying some stuff, and not being complacent, not just kind of waiting, so that's kind of, I think, the main point of today is, in all these conversations and just in general, customized employment is like, how do we get started now? What can we do now? So thank you for joining. Hey, Kimberly, great. Ely High Valley, you know that place. So I'm going to pull up, and I'm not the best with technology, so I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint here. And then we'll go from there. Sorry. Okay, and I will ask you if you wouldn't mind to, well, it's fine as long as we don't have feedback, to mute if you can. And Beth, let me know if stuff isn't coming up. But so what we want to do today, and we don't have tons of time, like I said, but we just want to share with you, a few weeks ago now, our first customized employment conversations, where we had shared just some, I guess, conversations internally we had amongst ourselves and with some of our customers, really spearheaded, I think, at the time by Florida VR, asking some pretty detailed questions about how to move ahead with discovering customized employment. And so we created just a little bit of guidance, or a little bit of just some ideas about things you can do. And so since then, I think we had some guidance we share now. I think I'll at least share with you at least one kind of piece of an example of work people had done doing distance discovery. I'll just show you a video and then tell you some other examples, just by word of mouth, that folks have shared with me, with the hope that we'll get video as the weeks move on. But what I want to really make sure that we do is give you all time to ask questions or to chime in as we go. So what I wanted to ask you to start, and please do participate, is I guess I just want to hear, again, you don't have to write a novel about it, but what is happening where you're at? We have somebody from Pennsylvania, we saw Florida. Where are things at in terms of your work? What you're doing, the phase where you at. I spent some time in New Orleans, so where are you? What phase are you in? Whether it's the CDC guidelines, or I'm talking to you from West Virginia, and we're now in I think in week 2 of our statewide kind of get back into it approach. And so there's been some changes with the travel restrictions, stay at home, that are happening, I think, slowly, or even regionally or locally. And so I'm just curious if y'all real quick wouldn't mind just typing in where you're at, what's happening. Get to there we go. Beth, do you still see the PowerPoint? Okay. Okay, so Michelle shared. Now, cool. Okay, so stay at home PA in Pennsylvania has been having a rough time. Students on hold, limited virtual services. Okay. Oh. Mistakenly unshared. So I'm curious, those of you, so it sounds like a lot of us are still at the stay-at-home order, or in West Virginia, what they're calling it now is safer at home. So there's a lot of guidance, and people who are um, are at risk, should do stay at home, but others can maybe be out a little bit more. But I'm curious, that fourth bullet there, what have you done? How have you adapted your work? Somebody had mentioned some virtual services. Could you be, and I know, it's hard to do in the chat box, but could you try to describe that specifically, or as specifically as possible, what you're doing what you're able to do, I guess, with the current restrictions? Cool. Virtual discovery. Okay, great. So, great. So I mean, well, wonderful. It seems like folks are making the adjustment. Fuse. Jennifer, could you explain what Fuse is? Every day, somebody mentioned Hangouts the other day. It was like a gamer place, a young guy we worked with. I've never heard that. Cool.
Please tell me that's not Google Hangouts, Russell. Surely you've heard of Google Hangouts.
No. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Probably I just read Hangouts. It was some gamer. It may have been that. I'm an old timer. No, there's another cool one. Um, yeah, sorry. Okay, cool. And so how has it? That's really awesome. How's it been going? What are you able to do you find, what I'll share, what we're finding is that you can get a lot of great information, but it's a bit of a different process. There's obviously there's the barriers of technology that you have to work through, but it seems like the flow is a little different. So I'm curious, can a few of you who said you're using technology share right, share how it's going? Right. People aren't as talkative on the phone. I think I may have that in one of the bullets, is that what we're finding is that it's obvious that it's harder to build a relationship when you're not, or it just takes a little bit longer. I don't know. Or maybe it's not even harder, but just we're new at it and we're not good at it yet. But there is that, that without the face-to-face, it seems like it's just a little bit more tricky. Anybody else? I'm curious, is anybody working with family? Oh, cool. Students are more comfortable with Zoom than you are? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Is it something, we talk a lot about, we need to go into people's worlds and not ask people to come into our worlds. And I think that's hilarious. That's pretty cool that this has made a lot of, like me, a lot of other people a bit uncomfortable. So cool. Transition group able to work technology, but input and fun twists on learning work skills have been engaged. Cool. Technology, skills, problem solving. These skills have been discovered. FaceTime, great. Has anybody working, I'm just curious, and this is for me, anybody working with folks who are living in group homes? Does anybody have that's, I think right now, a challenging thing for me is engaging people who are living in group homes. Because people are, I think, for obvious reasons, more restricted because of other people who live there. So that at least one person is. Can you share how that's going for you? And Peter Wiley. Okay. Are you finding that that group home, because group home staff also too have multiple responsibilities? Are you finding that staff are material to print and copy? Oh, cool. Okay. You're finding, and so this individual you're talking about. Is able to, or has those tools there. Okay. We've closed our center-based operations, something to start some virtual service. How we got here. Okay, so you got Tim. You're beginning the process of figuring out how technology works. And you train that way. What does that mean? You train that way. You train virtually. Is that what that means? Group home. Can, but there have been times I couldn't tie up the phone. Right. Right. Limited technology. Trying to find grant opportunities to get technology into the homes. Great. And then Maddie, quick question, Maddie, are people connected with VR? Those individuals with limited technology? I know there's a timing issue and how do you access VR, but that is a discussion that we've had with a lot of our funders, I think, or we're starting to, is just and this is what it has shown is an obvious need, that that the difference between how a lot of folks take technology for granted and how other people don't necessarily have access to it or the ability to use that. And so we've been, I guess, priming VR and other funders to let them know that if it's a barrier, right, then it should be something that, well, you're not saying should, but we'd love to have a discussion about, to move things forward.
And I totally agree, Russell, with the critical importance of priming and working actively to pursue technology support with our traditional funding streams. And also, just to throw out there right now, I know that there are a lot of different foundations in each state that are using they're allocating resources differently, and they're trying to free up additional resources. And another major area that the digital divide continues to reveal itself is with students, students who are now home trying to access school from home. So those may be really good questions to be seeking out with your foundations too, with your local community foundations, and just to explore. It does not mean, I still would say VR, Medicaid dollars, absolutely, but just there may be broader opportunities than that too.
Great. Zoom meeting rules list, do's and don'ts, and how to maintain professionalism during this time. Right. Use technology, discovery visits. By adding something about our skills and strengths that may not have been discovered. Cool. So Jennifer, you're saying that, I'm sorry, just to clarify, give them enough credit, that was before, but Jennifer, you're saying that when added technology, that maybe just the very fact that people have to use it as a medium and make it work is maybe showing some skills that perhaps we wouldn't have seen because of the extra layer there. Is that what you mean? Does that make sense? You don't have to answer right now. Cool. Wow. Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. Great. So I'm going to slide back to the PowerPoint, and I apologize, Beth. Again, this is me getting TA on the spot. To get back to the PowerPoint, I have to stop sharing, then share again. Why can't I go right to the PowerPoint? Do you know that?
I'm unable to answer that question.
Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. Oh, I see. Can you see? Do you see the slide now?
No.
Oh, great. Okay.
But you know what, Russell, if you want, you could keep talking. I could share, and then
okay.
And then I can just advance the slides for you. So just keep the conversation going. Everybody, give me just a minute. I gotta find this and pull it up, but I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. I've been using Teams for a while now. Should know this by now. Okay, great. And then I guess I wanted, the last bullet I think on that slide was just asking, how are you all planning for the for the next, I guess, month, 3 months, 6 months, 18 months? Are you? I mean, it's kind of uncertain, but are y'all expecting that there's going to be a back to normal, within a reasonable time frame, or are like, is the leadership team, I guess, making, contingency plans, or how's that? That's one thing I'm curious too about, because we're working projects all over the United States, and it just seems like the uncertainty is so great right now that that planning for it is planning for what comes next is a little bit uncertain. So curious about that with everybody. What do y'all are seeing about what you think the next, there you go, next 18 month back one, sorry. Okay. Does that make sense? Maybe that there's not an easy, I mean, I'm not looking for an obvious answer, but I'm just curious if you're hearing from,
Whoops.
it's okay. Cool, here we go. Okay. And that's the other thing, I'm really interested in your opinion, because I just think that there's, it helps us, it helps me to kind of bounce off what I think or what I'm feeling about what y'all are experiencing. Don't think it would ever be back to normal. Stay ahead and apply the funding sources. Members Goodwill, talking about opening May 18th. Allocations. In for a while longer. Yeah, back to normal. Lights on right away, fade over time, continue. Develop policy. Okay, cool.
Russell,
Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing for just a second.
Okay.
Your next slide is law of requisite variety. I've got it opened wrong, so I can't see the chat, and I want to be able to see the chat too. So
Okay.
y'all just bear with me for just one more second, and we'll be right back. But Russell, you got law of requisite variety coming up.
Great. So great. So this is, and I think the last two bullets were just about how, people need to learn about, technology, and we have to make that a priority. And because I think a lot of those things you're talking about and that we're talking about is that the future is uncertain. So the access to technology, if we want to kind of make sure that we're able to keep the process moving, people have to have it, whether it's, well, we go right back to business as usual, which I think is pretty unlikely, or it takes a long time or longer time, or there's kind of that. I just was reading about the different, all these letters. They have a V recovery, and then they have a bad ones, an L recovery, and then a swoosh recovery, and then a W recovery, a Y recovery. Like, there's all these theories about how the world's going to get back, but I don't think any of them really can happen, consistently without having the option of being able to adjust and use technology better than I think we have in the past. That's right. Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. So that's just the idea behind customized employment. It's flexible, it's adaptable. The last time we talked, we talked just a few seconds about the slide. It's just the idea is that I think every day we live it is just that it's more obvious now. We bump into the notion that if you have one plan, that's not going to be great. It's not, you're likely to hit a bump or a dead end or a barrier, and if you don't have an idea of how you're going to circumvent that barrier, how you're going to adapt, how you may be able to adjust flexibly and create options, that you're going to be in trouble. And I think now, it's just in our faces now that we're really struggle. We're needing to find ways to creatively serve people well. Not just, again, and the worry from our end has been. And from just in my work has been, I think I mentioned last time that I've been anti-technology a lot because I worried that it drove a wedge in between people getting to know each other, and it separated people from their communities, right? And I think there's a lot of good reasons. Reasons I thought that and still think that, but the problem is, right. What's on demand right now, right? But the problem is that when that's not available, we have to do things another way. How do we still keep up with quality services, right? How do we? What I see a lot when people are struggling with discovery is this idea that we have to get through it. We just want to get it done to move on to the next point, job development, and still, if we don't do discovery well, okay. We got you, Beth. Sorry about that.
I'm paying attention.
If we don't do this, see, the reason the discovery is important is because we've all been there when we have no idea what to do for job development, right? We feel stuck and we are at a loss and we don't know what to do next. And that's why discovery is there. So we just have to make sure that going through discovery using virtual tools, it doesn't turn into a way to get through it, right? A way to check off the box and say we did the home visit. One thing we're seeing, moving forward is that, and I hope you're seeing it too, if there's any VR counselors or employment seekers on, I've been just amazingly surprised, or not surprised, just been wonderful, that, employment seekers, and I think like a lot of folks have said, have been, I mean, everybody's open to it, through the process talking about it, looking at, well, how else can we do this? It's not, people are confused with how could this be done or what does this look like? But employment seekers, to a T, are open and are willing to use technology to figure out ways to keep the process moving. So that's been wonderful. And their supports. I mean, it takes some negotiation. Some kind of give and take and some problem solving, brainstorming. It takes a little bit longer to figure out, but we, now, I mean, we're busy as ever, but of course, but we have these spaces to figure this stuff out. So that's been wonderful. Employment seekers and their support. And then, a really great thing that we've seen is that VRCs, vocational rehabilitation counselors, have just been critical. They've been the reason that we've been able to have these conversations when people are concerned, because VRCs typically know the employment seekers longer than we do. They have more knowledge than we do in terms of context of what's been tried in the past, and they know about that in a more detailed way. And so it's been wonderful. The VRCs, and again, it doesn't take tons of. It's not been, it doesn't take any, it's not been strenuous, it's not been hard, it's just been, hey, this person's concerned or this provider is concerned, could we organize, or could we, figure out a way to have a conversation about options. And so, like I said, like in Florida, Michigan, these are the states I'm working with, and others that we work with, they reached out to us, or they kind of initiated the conversation while we were, we're having this internal conversation about, about 6 weeks ago about how to do stuff, and we're having like individual conversations, with our contacts, but they were really proactive, which has just been wonderful. And in fact, like the state of Pennsylvania started with maybe not sure, at least at one point, like what to do next, and then individually we, working with somebody, people we're supporting through mentoring, then, they're able to be flexible based on what providers are able to do. So that's been really, really wonderful. But the other things we want to make sure that that we just remind you and remind us is that, it just, we don't, with virtual stuff, there could be a tendency to say, I'll show you a discovery activity that got recorded. You could see how there could be a tendency to say, so Rachel's interested in culinary. Well, let's pull on 3 other people who are bored and not doing much now, and which is that, they need to be doing stuff, of course, but let's have them jump on a Zoom call, right? Because it's easy, right? We just want to make sure that it maintains its focus of being individualized and one person at a time. And also the other, the last 2 bullets being that, meaning that, we're not sure yet, and in fact, I think we could have discussions about it, but I do think that it'd be hard to complete discovering personal genius without spending time face-to-face with some of the folks. So I'll talk to you in a little bit about just some examples of informational interviews that have happened, and so that it's not been the intention, but because it takes a little bit more time, I think, to set these things up virtually, they've kind of created an informational interview, and it has turned into a task-based activity that will value the business when they open up, task based on, I'll share one example in a bit. And then the plan being, once they open up, once things get back to normal, the person will go there and do a discovery activity, task-based discovery activity, which it's just interesting that how these opportunities come from basically just kind of just talking to people, trying to figure out, how do we make this work? And just the time spent talking with providers, families, individuals, and businesses tends to kind of morph into just like, what about this? What would that look like? So anyway, just want to make sure it's not an alternative to face-to-face. And there's probably going to be this dance, this push and pull of how do we do it safely to get back together. One person that we're working with is refusing to leave the house with his family, but they ordered at first anyway, and they don't, the thing was, well, they just don't want to do discovery. And then we had a conversation. VRC organized it, and the VRC was like, no, what it is they're just they want masks, which is like every time I go out, I have a mask. So but they want to have masks when they're in the yard doing some discovery, some responsibility based kind of activities. So we just want to do it safely in a way that people are comfortable with. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, keep it individualized. Awesome, Maureen. So yeah, I think that's interesting, right? It's almost like and that's clearly with customized job development, which we'll be talking about in a couple weeks. It does seem that the more attention you pay to the details, and some approaches make you pay attention to the details, the more likely you are to get to an outcome that fits, because you've had to look in the nooks and crannies, under the rock, and kind of have conversations about things a little bit deeper just to make things work. And of course, the byproduct of all that is that you're building kind of a relationship, some kind of trust with people. Okay, so just going through the virtual activities. These so like home visits, these are pretty straightforward relatively. Virtual, whether it's FaceTime, Zoom, Teams, or the hip one, not the Google one, Beth, the hip one that the kid told me that I'll look up, you game on. That's pretty easy or not easy. It's just more translatable. This is how we can have a conversation. We do it anyway, text or FaceTime or whatever, and that conversation, that kind of negotiation isn't so unusual. People can share pictures, videos, they can walk through the house, give you a tour, whatever they're comfortable with. And then the same with the neighborhood. We saw, we have the same neighbor who walks by every day, takes his dog, feeds our dogs a number of times a day. We see the same jogger still going by. They're working on the Rotary Club, I guess, flower bed, community activity. So there's still a lot of stuff happening. The mailman's coming by every day. There's still rhythms and routines. Neighbors are out doing the yard. So that stuff's still possible. But what we're learning is that, and like somebody had mentioned earlier, is that it is, there is when a home visit was just, I had gone and met the individual during before all this happened, and just, sometimes it's like, hey, do we just want to share kind of what this is, and if you have questions, and people are a little kind of, what's discovery, and so the young man was with his family, but definitely part of the conversation. But when the individual, the staff person did the home visit virtually, she mentioned that he just really didn't talk much at all, and it was really hard to get him involved in the conversation. And also the other thing was that so she felt like maybe she didn't know him as well, or maybe that was harder to develop, but also that it just took a bit more time. It took, if typically we do the home visit in one visit, hour and a half. But then there's, maybe follow up, you're doing other things. So you're seeing people. That just, breaking it up into smaller bits is pretty important. And it's exhausting. I mean, that's certainly something I've learned with all these Zooms. Is there's something weird happening with, just with the attention span, that when you really, you can be on these things and look at your phone and do other stuff, which I'm guilty of just like everybody else. But when you're really talking to somebody, where they can see your eyes, and it's the same. I think it uses the same kind of muscles and takes the wind out of you, just like regular conversations are. Maybe a little bit more because your brain's trying to figure out all the technology. And then same again with interviewing others. We're finding not so hard, not so different. But it seems like because things are slowed down, people are using technology more. That phone call, what would be mainly a phone call before happened more often, just the employment seeker and the person to talk to. It's happening more with the individual being present too, if that works, and also more face-to-face stuff using, again, FaceTime or Zoom, or it just seems something that it's a tool that we're all using every day in many ways, and so we're using it in this too. If you could turn it again, Beth, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
And so just some activities I just wanted to, so I shared the young man, the yard household stuff once he got a mask, that, it's interesting because these are not, when we typically do home-based or familiar activity, discovery starts at home, what's your responsibilities, what do you do, how do you spend your time, that kind of stuff, what's asked of you. But sometimes I think because the world is smaller, in terms of our day-to-day life, we're finding that families who typically would be busy, going about their day and needing to get things done. So that's why their son or daughter doesn't cook breakfast entirely, or that's why they haven't been involved in doing the yard work or whatever, some of the other chores. We're finding that families, because there's a bit more space now, a bit more time, are open to that, and it makes sense, right? So the gentleman I was talking about really didn't do much of the outdoor stuff, in kind of the everyday rhythm of how his day, week, and month, year looked. But because things have slowed down a bit, I think it gives us the space to have a conversation about, hey, so we know so-and-so, son or daughter or person who lives here, doesn't typically cook breakfast, or doesn't typically mow the lawn, or doesn't typically, fix the fence or whatever, or put the mulch down, but is it possible that, since things are, people are, depending on that family situation, things aren't as fast paced as they were, would that be possible to do? Another example of that is, a young lady who her dad is kind of into hot rods, and so it just, strangely enough, that never came up during discoveries about his daughter, and so maybe I hope you learn kind of what the parents do and what they're into just through conversations or just looking around, but that just got missed, and so because of the world getting smaller, or shrinking a little bit in terms of options, physical options to do, this whole discovery activity kind of came about that I had not, when I reviewed, this is in Florida, and I reviewed the DSR, given feedback, nothing came up about the dad has like a garage, like a real garage, not just where you park the car overnight, but he works on hot rods, or on old cars, kind of like somebody Beth and I know, and the daughter also would help him a little bit with that. Occasionally, not all often, because people are busy, but assisting, I think, with giving towels and asking for tools and that kind of stuff. And so just the fact that other options maybe weren't available, it just helped us, I guess, have these conversations about things that we had missed previously, if that makes sense. So that was a discovery activity, and the dad videoed it and using an iPad or a computer, I'm not sure, and sent that to the they talked about it beforehand, obviously, and sent it to the employment specialist. Unfamiliar activities. So that's why I want to show you a couple of videos, and this is the video, one video of a couple pieces. It's pretty raw, but so Beth, I'll go back to sharing my screen, or sharing my computer. Okay.
Yeah.
So just want to give you an example of, and again, this is, we're learning how to do this. We're asking that people share with us. And so a young lady named Rachel who has a culinary theme potentially. This is the third discovery activity, so we're not yet to what we call vocational themes, but we're basically figuring out, okay, what did we learn, from talking to people and from spending time with you at home, and doing one or two, familiar home-based, familiar community-based discovery activity, and then we typically would go to an unfamiliar place. Just to do something new, help somebody explore something based on who they are, not random, but something that seems to fit them, and go talk to somebody and do something that seems to make sense based on them. So they found this a small business owner who in Michigan, and I don't know the exact details of. I know that she runs her bakery out of her home, and she does farm markets and places her stuff in different places. I know the rule, like I don't know exactly the rules in Michigan. I need to learn that. In Ohio, I know there's rules. You can have a home-based business, and they have flexibility in terms of when you're making perishables and consumables. In Michigan, I can't tell you if she has a kitchen type a commercial kitchen, or if there's another. I'll find that out though to share with you. But I just wanted to show you what people are doing. Michigan, this area, I mean, they're having a really hard time. If you're from there, if you're on here now, or if you look at, I mean, they have really had a rough go of it, and they're still having rough go of it. So I just think it's really great that they are able to do some of this stuff. And I do want to warn you. When I've been talking to, asking people, hey, can you record this? I've been very explicit about, sound is really important. We want to hear what people have to say. So please, make sure the sound's working. And so that I think people are talking really loud in this video. So I just want to make sure that, that's not because of, in the human service world, kind of how people tend to talk like that. I think it's just people wanting to make sure they're heard. So I'm going to share just a few clips, if that's okay. It'll take probably 7 minutes or 10 minutes. I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I'll just show you what they did. Okay, share. Okay, here we go. Okay, do you see the Zoom, Beth? Okay, great. All right, so again, I turn on your speakers and let me know if, Beth, let me know if the sound's bad. I've written down, I've skimmed it. I just got this yesterday. Just want to show you a couple of the clips that I think are pretty cool. Okay.
Becky and I are going to, watch you and Meg have fun today. Okay. Well, Meg, hi. My name is Jody, as Susie said, and I've baked since I was a little girl.
Russell, I think the sound just went out.
What's that?
The sound just went out, at least on mine. Can other people hear?
Right, folks type.
Yeah, sound's gone.
Yeah. Try again.
Sure.
Sorry. Oh man. Come on, Zoom or Teams. There is Dallas on? Any tips, Dallas? I'm doing something wrong.
Maybe when you click share screen, there's a thing at the top that says include system audio. You might want to checkbox that.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I'm doing? I'm down. This is playing off of online. So I have it out as a video. I think that's probably what happened. Sorry, everybody.
Maybe.
So let me see. Share screen. I think that's why I shared the stream. Can you probably can't see what I see. Let's see.
No, not right now. Questions, comments? You can talk amongst yourself.
Do you see it now? Oh, sorry.
No, still don't see anything.
Okay, sorry, everybody.
You're good. Just breathe.
Okay. All right. Manage practices. Share. Okay, here we go. Got it. You see that now?
Yep.
Yay. Okay, let's do it again. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. All right.
Still can't hear it though, Russell.
Still can't hear it.
Mm-mm.
All right, what were you saying, Dallas?
So when you click share screen, there's a thing at the top that says include system audio, and you can check that box.
Okay. Okay, if I click on the share screen, or if I just right click on it, no. Okay, I got it. Okay, all right, let's try this again. Here we go.
Third time's a charm.
I hope so. Okay.
Okay. Well, Meg, hi. My name is Jody, as Susie said, and I've baked since I was a little girl, but I didn't turn it into a business until I was in my mid-40s. Before that, I taught about the environment. So This is the first time I've been teaching in a while, but at least I'm teaching about something I love. And I like to bake. Do you like to bake? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I like to eat good things. So we're going to do both. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the New York crumb cake. It actually originated in New York City. Have you heard of Manhattan? No. Okay, Manhattan's the main island part of New York City, and it has neighborhoods. And a lot of people from different countries moved into different set neighborhoods. And on the east side of the island, on the north section, a lot of Germans and Austrians moved. So it got the nickname Germantown. Opened up, and they brought all those good recipes with them from Germany and Austria. And one of them was a lemon sponge cake with kind of a strudel on top. And over time, it became a crumb made with flour and brown sugar.
Okay, can you hear me, Beth? Okay, I just love, it's just, you can see here, I don't know if you can see the whole thing, they spent like 2 hours and 15, 20 minutes, which is not, not something I thought would happen. But just that, when we do discovery activities, it was just interesting. I didn't know that's how crumb cake, the time that she spends like talking and explaining this, that doesn't typically happen during discovery activities, I think, because people are busy and you're in a business place or you're in a community place and they've got to move on. I just thought that was, it wasn't just let's do this, here we go, right? It was like, let's set up why we're doing this and let's give you the history of crumb cake. And she said a bit about, who she was. So I thought that was, that's a really cool, I think, byproduct. Okay, so sorry, a couple more. Just, again, this is not perfect. I just skimmed it through it and then, okay, here we go. One more. Okay.
Now, this is the way a recipe in any good kitchen, bakery kitchen. You measure everything out first. The French have a name for it called mise en place. But you know what I say? I say it's called getting a good head start. Okay? So we're going to slowly measure everything out as we would need it. Okay? We'll get it all out. So as you can see, take a look at how I have all my stuff stored. See all this? And right here. These are my containers, but I have giant bags of the stuff. So when I'm working, I measure from the containers and then I put them away because this is all in the way. Okay? So we're going to do that together. We're going to start with putting, you have the right size bowl? Yes. Okay, we're going to start by getting the topping measured out. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the first thing we need to do, oops, here it is. Ooh, I'm too short. Here we go. Okay.
Nice.
Oh, you got the same bowl. Oh, yeah, it's even got the same markings. Excellent. Yep. That's good because it doesn't move. Oh, you got both of them. Nice. Okay.
Okay, use that one.
Okay, Meg. First things first, we're going to get the flour. Do you have flour?
Yep.
Okay, now I see, like you put it in a container. Okay. Now what happens is the flour sinks down and gets less air in it. So when you measure it, it can be too much. So do you have a whisk? Open the flour. That's good. All right. And you know what? It might be easier for you, hon, if you put a bunch of the flour in one bowl and measure from that bowl to, perfect. Yeah. Okay. That'd be easier. So put a whole bunch of flour in a bowl. Don't worry about measuring it. This is just to help you scoop it out. Yeah, lids, that's why I got the pop lids, because the flippy lids are annoying.
Okay, so can you hear me now, Beth? I can see you, just want to make sure. Okay, so I just, one thing I noticed that we would say is a problem, and so these are things we're learning that didn't occur to me, but it's obvious now, is that it's obvious, like the instruction's all verbal, which we are not, it just, in my teaching experience, that's not the best way to teach, that's a worse way to teach often, because it's just confusing. But this is Rachel's mom there, and so she's there to assist it when needed, or support her. But I thought I just wanted, even with that barrier and that kind of, I guess, limitation, I just thought the owner, her name's Jody. As far as I know, she's not been in the quote unquote human service world, right? But she said she taught earlier, and she works with customers. She works with vendors. I just think it's really cool. I mean, I thought the way she taught it, or the way she thought about how to convey information, was pretty right on, for just another person. And so, just to approach, I just think to find a small business owner, again, this is when we talk about small businesses and, not the big sign syndrome, but she's a business that doesn't have employees, as far as I know. So non-employer businesses, these are businesses that we may not typically approach when we talk about job development and opportunities there. I think you're learning the tasks too, and this is not job development, it's discovery, but I think you're also learning a lot about kind of, she broke out some French there, and later on
Russell, can I just jump in?
Yeah, sure.
It's funny because even as you said, like she's doing it all verbally, I was typing. It's such a testament to why we let the natural trainers train. Right. And I just think you're right. It's not that there wouldn't need to be any shaping, but why in the world would we come in and try to knock her out of the way and teach what she does, and just to point out too, I think we talk a lot, and Russell and I have been going back and forth as we've been writing the guidance for the customized job development and the importance of pulling out cues about workplace. And I think even in this little snippet of her, you're exactly right. You get such a sense of who she is, and you get a sense of what the environment in her kitchen is going to be like, right? Which is going to be very organized, and things are done in a very systematic way. And chances are really good another baker could do it completely differently. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I just think even in that snippet, there is so much information that emerges. Yeah.
So I just kept thinking about, like, if I was there would just be, if we were there, there'd be such an urge to get in the way, and to help that, what I mean? You can't help yourself, like, sometimes, and so you just, like, that's the other interesting thing about this technology is you cannot do that. Like the people on the left side right here, these are the deployment staff, and they haven't done anything, which is wonderful. I mean, and this is obviously, she's a very skilled, not everybody has the same skills in terms of teaching, but I think that you assume that people are good at stuff, understand it and have the ability to convey that information in some competent capacity. So yeah, so that, I just think, I mean, and you could watch, and we're running out of time, we got to move on, but so they made the shortcake, and later on I could show you how the owner, like, mom messes up at one point. Like Rachel is about to do the right thing based on what was instructed, and mom messes up, and Jody says to mom, you're fired as a sous chef, the sausage. It's just really like, now you're fired. You keep going, Rachel. So it just was really just by us not being there to be able to kind of intervene unnecessarily. Not that we are needed often too, but it's not during discovery activities. There's no risk. There's nothing, no stakes to it, right? So it's just really cool. So if you go to the end, and we'll try to put this together. They made shortbread cookies too, as well as the cake. So Beth, do you mind going back to the? I'll not share. I'll stop sharing my screen. Go back to the PowerPoint. Yeah. Oh, don't share. Oh, actually, I can share mine. I can do it. Yeah, here we go. Okay. And I'm just going to run through it. That actually, today was pretty much all about. I wanted to just show you that because they're really cool, and I'm really happy, I'm really excited about those two staff you saw. I think have really and they're doing a great job, and Rachel's awesome, and that business owner is pretty awesome. So so great. So that's unfamiliar, and unfamiliar home and community, but unfamiliar business. I think if the world was functioning, they'd be in her kitchen, But like Beth said, I know that it would not look as good as that. You would not see such clean instruction and control. I think it would look a lot messier, if somehow we could do it. And it's making me think, like, why do we even have to be there? If it works well, why can't they can record it and we'll do something, I don't know. So great, and then some unfamiliar activities will be ordinary places just means non-human services. So that's the thing is I still don't know how you could do it without eventually being in spaces, and hopefully even if we aren't all back together as a world, globally, that we can find these healthy places or safe places to go. So making the transition, and we're about done, we're going to working on job development. And so we had talked about this last time. There's a lot of different stuff you can do. If you're done with discovery, we have the space now to really, if we can't get out in person or meet in person, as we're becoming better at these tools, we can do a lot of great if you want to think about marketing or kind of market research, relationship kind of mining, and informational interviews are still good. We're having I just wanted to share this today. Right now, there's an informational interview happening right as we speak with a gymnastics place that's geared towards competitive gymnastics, but also children. Somebody with a sports and children theme, and a small art studio, a machine shop, and then that culinary one. So these folks here in Detroit, I mean, these are businesses. Again, they're not maybe the big obvious places. They had to do a little bit of I think brainstorming or just asking for help. But they're businesses that are like we've always said, is that they're thinking about what to do next. They're thinking about how are things going to transition. These are business owners that maybe their time's different now, but they are they're not sitting around waiting. And so the cool thing about these is that the information interviews are happening, but like I think I mentioned earlier, they're also gonna, they're doing what they can now, but they're gonna lead into they've been invited to then, once we can be in that space, then to go and do stuff in that space. So so once we get to job development, we want to remind everybody that now is a really, I just saw, I think right now the unemployment, again, not to be a bummer, but the unemployment rate's the highest it's been since the Great Depression. It looks like 33 million jobs have been lost, in like 6 weeks or 7 weeks. And again, I'm not an economist, I'm not an epidemiologist, public health expert, but as it doesn't seem like the jobs are going to come back in the same amount of time that they went away. I think that's unlikely. So what's probably going to happen is there's going to be a bunch of people, a lot, just as people with disabilities have always experienced, there's going to be a huge line for each individual job. And so everybody on this call probably knows that, but there's hopefully, there's going to be a push, towards that demand-facing approach, the extremely, hyper-competitive, comparative approach. And we think that this is a really cool time, and it always is, but especially now when businesses are trying to figure out, like, how do I adapt? How do I adjust? How do I change? What opportunities, right, are created by this? What challenges and problems do I have now that I need to solve? There are a wonderful time to have conversations beyond, are you hiring? Because I just think that's not, when businesses start going again, I don't think that's a question that they're gonna, I think that question is gonna be answered. I think that the jobs are gonna come back right away. So those jobs that just, job in a box, they're gonna be filled relatively quickly, I would guess. So I just we're going to talk about that. We'll have another webinar in a couple of weeks, and we're putting out a white paper about customized job development. But just want to remind you that the point of customized job development is to engage in conversations, is to not have that binary up or down or hi are you hiring that doesn't go anywhere. So and those of you that, again, this is not new, it's not special. but just these prompts about, can you imagine, what would you think if, would you consider, right? There's a possibility that the employment seeker may be able to help with whatever. You talked about this, or hey, you said that, can I like to ask you, or could you tell me more about that? These kind of open-ended conversations that I think people are going to be open to having because of the uncertainty. I think people are really open to thinking about what are my options, and I just I just want to make sure. I know none of us on this call, but any time we can influence this conversation. One thing that I was reminded writing that, as we're writing this paper, is that in the best of times, things really suck for working age adults with disabilities. I mean, they're experiencing depression era, way past depression era unemployment forever. It doesn't matter what happens to the economy. 2% change is all I saw, and I did a brief search. I need to look, but 2% change from how things were in 2008 to then how they are in 2013 to then how they are right before this happened. Right, the greatest economy in terms of unemployment since World War II. 2% is the general fluctuation. So that's some change, but not like, those of us who worked to do this work to understand how rising tide doesn't lift all boats. I just, there's gonna be a pressure, I think, to do the labor market approach, placement approach. And I just think, as always, for a lot of people, it's just doesn't make sense.
Russell, can I just chime in and say, my echo, sorry. I don't know how to stop the echo.
I don't hear it. You sound good to me.
You don't hear it? Okay. It's coming out of my computer.
I'll mute me.
Okay. Yeah, that's better. So I was just going to say, I think one of the things that we've often said about customized job development is that it's essentially relationship building. It's relationship-based job development. And again, I just take you back to that video. And I think that all of those open prompts that Russell put up make so much more sense. And they can emerge so much more organically in a conversation with the baker, following that kind of an interaction and that kind of a connection, and following the connection that emerges between the baker and Rachel. And so again, I just want to say all of these pieces go together. And if you cut any of them out, then you wind up in a really different place, right? But I think if we're having the really good connections through the discovery activities that we're doing, we still are creating the openings and the possibilities for exploring options, even if we are having to do much of that virtually in this moment. And if you predict that the dial is going to be kind of going back and forth over the next 18 to 24 months, what that means is that the kind of jobs that we create have to be the sort of jobs that can sustain within that dial up, dial down environment, right? And so all of these pieces actually really do come together. And Kimberly, I agree completely. Like, I think this could actually be a time for people to be able, the individuals that we're working with, to be able to be a part of the resuscitation effort of the communities, right? They could actually be at the front of the line for the first time ever. And I think that that's what we need to force. That's what we need to push. And that's the view in possibilities that we just cannot back away from. And yes, we will share the PowerPoint, which is the most important question. So sorry, Russell, I'll be quiet now. Go. You're on mute.
Thank you. I live in West Virginia, and so the argument I've made here is like, we're so poor, and we have the greatest prevalence of disability in terms of percentage of working age population, that you can't really have, you can't have economic development in West Virginia and not include people with disabilities, because it's such a big chunk of we're a small company or small state, but it's such a big chunk of the population, 25 to 35%, depending on how you measure it, that you can't really have wide ranging economic development and wealth building and leave those folks behind. So in West Virginia, it's been like, why can't our work and the folks who have been at the sidelines, why can't we help these individuals be a part of the vanguard, a part of the first movement towards creating something better, or something that works better. So yeah, that's a great comment about why do you have to wait, right? I think that's the point. Is you can, there may be really cool opportunities now to do some very core, be a core part of the world healing. I don't want to sound silly, but kind of the economy healing itself or restructuring itself, right? To be a big part of helping that, and which of course in turn helps other businesses and workers. So you guys know this, customized wage job and self-employment, combination employment. These are just the options we consider. You know, if it's about creating work, then those are the options. Cool.
And again, we'll talk about all of this in a couple weeks. So join us on May the 22nd to talk more about job development.
Yeah, so we'll move on. And we'll talk about that here. So I just want to make sure we mention there's 2 upcoming webinars. We think there's one next Tuesday. You wouldn't mind, Beth, just say a word about Marcia?
Yeah, so this is Marcia Threlkeld. I don't know how many of you know her. Marcia is she has really emerged as one of the premier, if not the premier, experts when it comes to technology. And she's not just speaking from the vanguard or the viewpoint of assistive technology. What she's really beginning to dive into, or has been diving into for the last many years, is what would be considered a more universal technology. So how we can be using apps, how we can be using smartphones, tablets, all of that to support people and to enhance their autonomy and their independence in a way that was previously lacking given the lack of access to technology. So I think her conversation is something that is always critical, always relevant, really important for all of us to learn how to do our jobs better. And again, to help people get as much autonomy in their lives as possible. But I think we've hit a whole new level of need to learn from Marcia with everything that's going on in the world right now. So highly, highly, highly recommend tuning in to listen to her if you get the option. I think we'll try to record it, but just in case, I would say join the session because she's very much hands-on just in terms of how do you take this and make it work for everybody in a fundamentally different way and help it open doors for people. So that's not her official bio, but I give her 4 thumbs up if I had 4 thumbs. Yeah, she's phenomenal. And very, very grounded in authenticity and the real world of work. So yeah, awesome. And transition.
Perfect. So yeah, and I think next Friday we may have one as well.
Marcy Frawley. Yep.
About supporting families or during this time. So so great. I'm pretty sure this is the last slide. So if there's any questions, anything you want to talk about, I'm able to hang out for a while. But thank you so much for hanging out and being part of this and you know making our work better. I just think that all of us are so curious.
Yeah, and I will say this too, for anybody who's still sticking around and listening, the videos I think are transformative in many, many, many ways. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we do job development and how the information like that was captured in Rachel's video then can begin to support her moving forward with the search for work. But if any of you are making fabulous videos, if you want to share those, if you want to send those, if you have permission to share, we are happy to help promote examples however we can so that the field can continue to learn from each other and learn from itself. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really, I mean, it's so important to share good work. I mean, I think that's the most important thing, really.
Yeah.
So cool. Hey, Janet.
Janet giving tech tips.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, woohoo!
Janet, she was searching through like 6 calendars yesterday about training. I was like, I couldn't keep up. I mean, I literally, I don't know if you could tell, but there was one point when I was like, after talking to you 15 minutes, I was like, I don't really know what she told me. Like, I can't recall. I mean, I remember there's like 4 of them, but I can't remember when they were. So I had to ask you, like, can you email that to me? That was pretty bad.
Well, then I realized there was like 2 more that I didn't even talk to you about. So.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get my email?
Did you email me?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Emails like, I'll check. Text me. I'll get to it.
Really?
So.
No, check the
Thanks,
email.
Jennifer. Bye.
Check with
And if anybody has questions, we're hanging. So